Good morning. Welcome to the Journey of Mela Lifestyle. Thank you for joining us. My name is Camila Tibbetts, and if you're new here, welcome. This is our morning moments, madness, and meditations. And what we do here every morning is that we come together as a tribe, we come together as a community, and I give two quick meditations. I also call it madness because it's my way of just sharing the journey of being a founder of a startup. If you're new to our community, or if you're new to seeing me or hearing me, if you're joining us on the podcast, my name is Camila Tibbetts. I am a serial entrepreneur. I have founded and scaled two brands in the past, and this is my heart's passion, I would really say, to launch Mela Lifestyle, which is a website that we launched, I think, back in November, and it's what it is really is a community, but we also curate products around the categories of wellness, home, beauty, and style. And so this is just me taking you behind the veil and showing you what it's like in the madness of starting something, of launching something, because we all know that it doesn't just end when I'm fixing my hair, because I can do that because we're family. My mom used to come over and I used to go, "Hey family." I thought I would always start with that, but that would trigger me and make me sad. No one wants to be sad when they're sharing. So this is just us coming together and me sharing. So it's Tuesday. You guys know we did a big In the Kitchen with Camila episode over the weekend where we had 3 recipes that I shared around peppermint bark. So we did a peppermint affogato, which is basically espresso over peppermint ice cream. We did a peppermint chocolate peppermint martini, a mocktail and traditional version of that, and then we also did peppermint rocky ledge bars. So if you missed that episode, you can still catch it on Mela.lifestyle Instagram. You can catch it on mine, as well as our YouTube and our blog. So on the link tree here, you can click that, and there's just different mediums of where you can get those recipes. If you want to see the videos of me in the kitchen, moving and creating and baking all the goods, that's available to you as well. So I want to honor your time. It's Tuesday. There's a lot going on. It's basically, I think it's like the week before Christmas, and for some of you that celebrate Hanukkah, you're in the midst of Hanukkah. So I want to honor your time because I know we're all busy. I'm just going to go into 2 quick meditations. So I never really know what I'm going to share. I may have a thought around it, and you know how on Facebook a memory pops up? And so I saw the memory, it was a picture of me and my kids, and I just posted the memory. And then it wasn't until I went on live that I saw the writing and description that I wrote around that picture 6 years ago. And what it said was that, it's just honoring my kids, telling them how much I love them. I have a son and a daughter. I have a 23-year-old son who graduated Fordham last year, works in strategy. And I have a 19-year-old daughter who likes to say she's 20, but she's officially 19, and goes to Pace University here in New York. So this was 6 years ago, and I'm taking this picture with them. And I always tell my kids, I want my ceiling to be their floor. And what do I mean by that? I mean that everything that I have accomplished in my life to date, or the legacy of me as a woman, as a business owner, as a mentor, all those things, there will be a ceiling just that's mine. And isn't it beautiful that as parents, as caretakers, as leaders, managers, executives, that we know that either if it's our kids or if it's our team, that what we've accomplished on a structural level in our organization or in our family, that even though that's a ceiling for us, that someone else can step in because we poured out into them, and our ceiling can be their floor. So I shared that on my Facebook around my kids, and I ended it. It made me a little misty. I ended it, and it said, "You are my greatest sacrifice." And in that moment when I wrote that, that's what I was in, right? I was in mommy mode. I was living in San Diego. I think I had 1 kid applying to college. I knew I still had another kid at home that I could still mother. And that was my sacrifice at the time, was definitely, even though I had a business per se, some of the passions, the goals, the opportunities, the experiences that I really wanted to have, I knew that I would just have to sacrifice that just to be present in the moment for my family. And and so that's our meditation this morning, right? My greatest sacrifice. So I wanted to ask you, we're always this week what we're always doing is like having meditations and that are thoughtful, that you can really do your own personal work around to take you into the new year, because this is, like I always say, like this is just a chapter in a broader story, right? And like you get to write your own story. Like we can't control what is going on around us in culture and in society, in the world, but we can control how we respond to it, and we can write that out. So our first meditation this morning is my greatest sacrifice, and basically what sacrifice means is this, it's like giving up something that you value for the sake of something else that's important or worthy. So I'm just going to repeat that again. A sacrifice is anything that you give up something at the present moment of what you value for the sake of something greater or worthy. So in that season of my life, being a mom was my greatest sacrifice, that I still am honored, and I still look back on that. I always say I want to finish strong as a mom. So, and yes, you know, I'm still a mom. I'm still a mom, but the idea of caretaking, I'm, you know, my mom used to always say, you move from, when you're a parent, you move from being a parent to a consultant, right? And so you think about that when you're mentoring someone or you're leading someone, that there's a time when you're giving them like clear instruction, clear direction, but the power and the fruit of a good leader is when you can step back and just see the person like walk out the instruction that you've given them, and then you're just consulting and giving wisdom. And so even though they're going to make mistakes, like you can kind of see the roadmap that they're on, because you know we talked about that yesterday, right? About being in the trenches, and how the trenches is something where it's just like a narrow pathway that provides a safety for you. And isn't it so great in our lives that as leaders, as business owners, as caretakers, as parents, that we can still provide that. We can get in the trenches with someone and be that place of refuge. So when I posted that picture on Facebook, and I said, you know, my kids are my greatest sacrifice, at that season it was. But you know, we have, just like the weather comes and goes, like we have different seasons in our life. So my question to you is like, what has been your greatest sacrifice in 2020, right? So like what have you sacrificed, whether it's staying at home, not taking a certain job, you know, not going after that in-person class and doing things on Zoom, like a relationship that you had to close or pause. Like, what has been your greatest sacrifice of 2020, and how will you take that sacrifice, that worthy moment, and how will it launch you into the next year? So that's our first meditation this morning, is my greatest sacrifice. What is your sacrifice? What has been your greatest sacrifice? I don't want you to tell me, oh my God, you know, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to tell me, like, what have you sacrificed in 2020, and how have you built that muscle? Because I can guarantee you that you may not see it. And you know, I always say I'm here to remind you of who you are, and to remind you like what's inside of you. That I can promise you that there are some seeds that were planted in 2020 that you may not even know, because of the sacrifice you made, that will bear good fruit in 2021. You know, I can hold strong to that. Like, there's something that you planted through sacrifice this year that will bear good fruit for next year. And you guys always DM me and tell me like, oh my gosh, this happened. Like, I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah, it happened. I told you that. So, but it's up to you to walk it out, right? Because I always tell people that I mentor, like, I can't work harder than you're willing to work for yourself. So this is it, right? Like we share the meditations. I give you 2 quick meditations, and then you go out and do the heavy lifting around it. You go out and like get in the trenches and you know, make that sacrifice for yourself, your life, your business, your family. And my second meditation this morning is protect your peace. What do I mean by that? So when I think back, if we're just going to make everything around the whole idea of the season of that mothering part, you know, it was my greatest sacrifice. And in that moment, you know, anything you're sacrificing, like you don't want to get resentful, right? Because if you're sacrificing and you're doing something with the expectation that someone's going to thank you, or someone's going to like pat you on the back, or like that, that's selfish, and like that's not going to happen. And then what happens is we build up this resentment because we were in an action and a behavior expecting something. You know, you're doing the behavior for an expectation of what you're going to receive in return, not from a place of sacrifice because it's worthy. So I remember during that time where if I started to get resentment because, you know, I wanted to go on a trip, but it was back to school night, or, you know, I wanted to make a move to New York, but I knew it wasn't, you know, it was a great move for me now, but it wasn't maybe 3 years ago when I had a kid applying to colleges. So what you do in those tough moments, you know, I always talk about like there's a tension. You want to be able to stay in the tension of what's happening, that it's not either or, it's yes and. So it's not like you have to pick one room or the other. It's like, can I live in the tension of both things happening at the same time? Like, and so I remember really having to protect my peace in that moment. And protecting your peace means different things for different people. And so how have you protected your peace this year, and how will you continue to do that going into next year? So for me, you know, what is protecting my peace? I always talk to you guys about having an inner court, right? Like having that inner council of people, having someone that is going to call out the gold in you, right? So having someone that's going to remind you of who you are, or show you like how you went from valley moments to mountain moments, and like be with you in that. And so thinking about ending 2020 and going into 2021, how am I going to protect my peace? You know, is it not going to be from a place of wellness? Is that going to be from a place of intimacy? Is that going to be from a place of physically? You know, do you have to do some inventory around people you need to invite closer into your life, or people that you need to, what I call, put on timeout? And you know, and we talked about that last week, right? About closing doors, right? That we close doors gracefully, and we have the conversations, and we don't just, you know, forget it and run, for lack of a better word. So thank you for joining me. I want to keep it short and sweet this morning, because I know like this is a crazy season. But the two meditations again for today are my greatest sacrifice, like what has been your greatest sacrifice for 2020, and whatever that was, like how will that launch you into 2021, and above all, protect your peace. So ciao for now, guys. Thanks for joining me. Bye.